Tonight, growing pressure on the U.S. government to deny entry to Israeli finance minister. Bezalel Smotrich recently called for wiping out a Palestinian village. The village has been subject to settler violence, which is being described as a pogrom. And women can take long walks without feeling unsafe. This comes from a new app that connects lone women with other female walking partners. It says it does not track their locations or share their data with third parties. And centering Islamic paradigms in our understanding and approach to mental health. An international initiative bridges the gap between Western and Islamic psychology.
Syed and myself were thinking of a way of how can we organize and how can we harness this beautiful energy that we were witnessing of people's interest in Islamic psychology, but also a way to then provide resources.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I am Saamiyah Syed. Advocacy groups, including Jewish American organizations, are pressuring the U.S. government to bar the entry of a far-right Israeli minister for his suggestion that a Palestinian village be wiped out. 2 days ago, the U.S. State Department denounced Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich's comments, calling them, quote, repugnant and disgusting. Advocates are arguing that verbal condemnation is not enough. Smotrich oversees civilian administration in the West Bank. He is set to speak in Washington, D.C. in late March. In a letter addressed to President Joe Biden, a Jewish advocacy group demands that Smotrich's entry to the U.S. be denied. They say Smotrich's comments invite a war crime. A new app called A Safer Walk connects lone female walkers with nearby female partners headed in the same direction. The app uses GPS location information to pair the walking partners. It does not continue to track the location or share the data with third parties. The service is free to use for women. They must register with their driver's license. However, commercial clients can get group services by obtaining a license. Right now, the app is meant to provide women a safe walking experience. The founders hope that it will also help women network, find exercise buddies, share car rides, and create a social circle. A special UN representative has begun a 10-day probe into the Canadian Indigenous issues, including missing and murdered females in former residential schools. The investigation is being conducted by UN Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Kali Zay, an Indigenous man from Guatemala. Zay's probe is needed to spotlight the treatment of Canada's 3 Aboriginal peoples, the First Nations, Inuit, and the Métis, according to the Haudenosaunee Confederacy of 5 First Nations. To date, about 2,000 unmarked graves have been discovered at various residential schools, and at least 4,000 Indigenous females are thought to have been murdered or disappeared between 1980 and 2012, according to the Native Women's Association of Canada. A French soccer player who also played for Morocco in the recent World Cup has been indicted on rape charges by French prosecutors. Achraf Hakimi was questioned yesterday by investigators. Later, he was indicted on preliminary rape charges. Under French law, preliminary charges does not mean the case will go to trial. Right now, Hakimi is placed under judicial supervision. He is not allowed to get in touch with the woman alleging rape. Hakimi's lawyer says he denies the allegations. A spokesperson for Hakimi's football club says they, quote, give their support to Hakimi and place their trust in the justice system. Now, the International Students of Islamic Psychology, otherwise known as the ISIP Foundation, are trying to bridge the gap between understandings of Western and Islamic psychology. To learn more about how they are doing this, I'd like to welcome Sister Fatima Ahmed, the co-founder and international coordinator of ISIP, to the show. Welcome, Sister Fatima, and thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us today. I can hear that you're out of school and there's some noises, but thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Sister Saamiyah.
Sister Fatima, tell me about ISIP. What is the objective of the foundation that you are working towards?
So, International Students of Islamic Psychology is really geared towards trying to bring a holistic understanding and centering Islamic paradigms into well-being and into Muslim mental health. So the idea for ISIP is to be a platform for people to further their personal and professional development in their communities and in their places of origin, to help to normalize Islamic psychology as well. We disseminate resources in a free and accessible manner, and we're trying to build networks all over the world where people can feel connected with Islamic psychology, and bringing that kind of centering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala into the sense of well-being, into how well-being is even understood.
Mm-hmm. I was reading online that the foundation arose in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. What was happening specifically that encouraged you to form the foundation?
Right. So the pandemic ended up being a catalyst and a way for many of us who otherwise may not have been able to attend in-person conferences to attend all of these conferences online. So in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, there was a Muslim mental health conference by the University of Michigan, and it was being offered online. I had never actually attended an online conference before, but given the circumstances and it was accessible, I was like, okay, Bismillah. And at the same time, I had started my master's in pastoral studies and to become a spiritually integrated psychotherapist. So those two things happening at the same time in my life prompted me to join that conference online. When I joined that conference, my co-founder, Syed Miri in Sweden, was also attending that conference. And he put out a call of who wants to be a part of an Islamic psychology WhatsApp group. So many of us at that time from that conference joined that WhatsApp group, and it kind of started to grow organically from that. And as we were sharing that WhatsApp group, it just started growing, and we could see there was a real interest in this, and people started sharing resources. And obviously, through a WhatsApp group, it's hard to keep track of resources and all these events. So Sayyid Jamaluddin and myself were thinking of a way of how can we organize and how can we harness this beautiful energy that we were witnessing of people's interest in Islamic psychology, but also a way to then provide resources. So one of our first initiatives was to create a database, and so that started about 2 years ago, and just collecting all of those resources that were being shared on the WhatsApp group. Mm-hmm. And that really formed our first kind of initiative as ISIP, to make a digital library, which alhamdulillah now has over 1,000 resources.
And all of this is available on the website. Now, you said that you are disseminating knowledge and resources of best practices, but what does that mean? What specifically are you providing to the public?
So alhamdulillah wa shukrullah, we have an advisory board, and many of the top scholars from all over the world, Indonesia, Turkey, Dr. Mustafa Merter, Dr. Human Kashavarzi from the Khalil Center, Dr. Abdullah Rothman, Dr. Rania Awad from the Stanford, in California, the Stanford Muslim Mental Health Lab. All of these wonderful scholars are part of our advisory board. And last year alone, we were, alhamdulillah, able to offer 75 lectures online, and that included 6 languages. So half of them were in English, and about half of them were in other languages like Turkish, Arabic, Bahasa, Urdu, Malayalam. So offering this educational component from our scholars has been a real educational initiative of ISIP. and all of our lectures online are being offered for free, alhamdulillah. So this is this is a large part of what ISIP is trying to do and trying to offer.
Now, as you mentioned just before, there is a growing interest in Islamic psychology. And, oftentimes we hear the phrase psychology, but from an Islamic perspective. What exactly does that mean? Could you give an example to explain what that difference is and why it's so important?
Right. Just recently, alhamdulillah, at the RIS convention here in Toronto, I was at the booth for ISIP, also for the Emmanuel College at the University of Toronto. And as I was interacting with people, and again, this is something that we've seen for the last couple of years, is people mentioning why there was a hesitation in Muslims accessing mental health professionals. And it was a repeated theme that we keep hearing. People feel like when they want to seek help, they would like people to understand their world view and their framework. And oftentimes in the past, psychology and religion have had a little bit of friction. One of the people who obviously Freud had a kind of an antagonistic view towards religion. So it's gone through psychology. The Western psychology has gone through, this type of embeddedness of friction with spirituality and religion, which is starting to change. But for Muslims, when we understand that life in this world is framed within an Islamic framework, that this world and this dunya is a part of our lives, but we had a primordial witnessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we will have an akhirah, that changes our entire worldview. And so, and also our concept of well-being is going to be rooted in looking at a holistic sense of the self, where we're acknowledging and centering our ruh and our spirit and our connection to Allah, and recognizing that the soul has an important and centering role in the concept of well-being. So it's really important for us as a community to start to understand how these different frameworks will really affect our entire well-being.
And what I found really interesting about ISIP in particular is that it's almost a global foundation,
Yes.
with having connections with people all around the world. How does that factor into the services or resources being provided?
I would love to share this one story, this testimonial. Recently, so last year, we did a 5-part series with Dr. Osman Bakr in Malaysia. He's one of the top scholars in the world, really, and he's one of the 500 most influential Muslims. MashaAllah, we were very blessed that he did a 5-part series for us on Islamic psychology from the Ghazalian point of view. And this was being, again, offered free. And there was an email that I received from someone in the Philippines who told us that given the remote island that they were in, they don't always have internet. They were taking a 10-hour boat ride to the mainland just so they could attend this series with Dr. Osman Bakr that ISIP and the International Islamic University of Malaysia was offering. I was extremely humbled and extremely touched. We have testimonials of people from all over the world really telling us how this has helped them to gain essential knowledge and also to feel so much more connected with other people all over the world. So we're very, very blessed and humbled by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been able to help us do in these 2 years.
So I guess then international partners and teachers will help gather people from all around the world to come and attend as well for ISIP. Thank you so much, Sister Fatima, for joining and sharing more about what ISIP is doing, and all the best.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Sister Saamiyah.
You are watching the Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. That's it from our Toronto studios tonight. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more Canadian Muslim content. Stay safe, and until next time.